Welcome back to the Pump Take Sports Show. Today, we're going to be doing an Atlanta Hawks special video because they've been one of the most active teams in this free agency time period. So some of the biggest moves that they are notable, of course, is the Bogdan Bogdanovic signing, the Rajon Rondo signing, the Okongwu draft pick, the Gallinari signing, the signing of Kris Dunn. And so obviously that's a whole bunch of stuff to take in at once, but we're going to do a roster breakdown, kind of project where they could fall in the Eastern Conference playoffs. And just talk about the Atlanta Hawks because they've been a very active team in this offseason. So does anyone want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to start by saying I love what the Hawks are doing here. I think this the combination of moves they made is really going to push them into being competitive for those last few Eastern Conference playoff spots after such an abysmal last couple of years. That's something they really kind of just need to stay relevant, especially with your star player in Trae Young. There comes a point where you need to start being competitive. So I think that these moves have been a just fantastic way to improve the team over a short offseason, and I really like what they've done.
Yeah, me as well. I think one big signing, of course. Actually, you know what? I'll type a small signing first. Kris Dunn. I think this is a great signing for them. Kris Dunn can come off the bench and he can score points, and I think he never really achieved his full potential in Chicago. And I think when I watched Kris Dunn play basketball, he was a good player, good enough to be rostered on a team. And I mean, I don't think they paid Kris Dunn that much money. And
$5 million a year.
Sorry?
Kris Dunn is on a 2-year, $10 million. So $5 million annual.
$5 million a year. That's nothing. And so obviously you have Rondo coming off the bench, but Rondo doesn't really provide the scoring that you might want as your bench point guard. So Kris Dunn could be a really nice piece coming off the bench for the Hawks, I think.
Even if you just slot him
very versatile. Sorry, he's a very versatile player too. You can play him at 1, 2, or 3. He has a chance to kind of be one of those bench players where they can just slot him in a position of need at the moment. Sorry, go ahead, Kale.
Yeah, I was just pretty much going to say the exact same thing because the thing with Rondo is that Rondo is just your traditional point guard. So Kris Dunn, it's he's a player that you can slot in. 3. Oh,
you're good.
That boy's my head just I'm good now. My headset was just breaking for some reason. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, Kris Dunn can play either of the guard positions, and he can kind of be that scoring threat off the bench while Rondo is facilitating your bench offense.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I love what the Hawks are doing. I'm a big Hawks believer. Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
I was just gonna say about Kris Dunn. Do you guys remember when he tried to dunk and he went like this and he knocked out all of his teeth and he had to go to the dentist and he missed games in fantasy because of it? Kris Dunn, of course, he's as both of you guys said, really like the signing for them for basically nothing. He just provides scoring off the bench, and of course they've lost a couple guys as well who provided some scoring for them. So this is a good little plug-in on the bench. And sorry, Marky, you were saying something?
No, it's okay. I agree with what you guys are saying with Kris Dunn. And I love all the signings that they're just doing in general, big or small. I'm sure, maybe we'll go through each of the players that they've signed, and then at the end, we'll just give our take on the Hawks as a whole. Mm-hmm. Best way to do it. But, done. Another signing they've done is Gallinari. That's a very interesting one. They have so many players now, as we'll talk about, that can play the 4 or the 5. I mean, Gallinari is obviously not a 5. It's power forward, maybe small forward. But yeah, it's so cool what they're doing. I think Gallinari is a really good fit for the team. Provides, just that big man presence. He's also a really great shooter. Someone that, if someone drives in, can kick it out. He can spot up for a 3. They got him at a decent price too. I like the Gallo signing as well. They're just bringing in a lot of talent, and definitely can make playoff stuff. Be able to bring in.
Yeah, we kind of lost you there at the end, but got everything you said about Gallo. Gallo is 100% their best scoring big that they have. And I think he kind of fills a very nice role on that team because if you kick it out to Gallo, like as Marco was saying, he's an excellent three-point shooter. And let's be honest, Capella was never that. And Okongwu gets more kind of comparables to a guy like a Bam Adebayo for his athleticism and kind of his just electricness around the rim. Gallinari he's still a really big guy. Like I'm pretty sure he's like 6'9" or 10 or 11 or something like that. Really big guy, could play the 4. They could even slot him at the 5 if they wanted to go really small, but yeah, excellent shooter. Provides more of a scoring option in their bigs, but you're right, Marco. They do have almost too many bigs now to kind of, I mean, who's going to start in the 4 and 5, right? I mean, they've got John Collins, who's still a natural power forward. Like John Collins, if they wanted to move him to small forward, that would maybe be a little bit of a weird transition.
I know.
It would.
I know. I don't think Gallinari would ever really get slotted into the 5, but one reason I do like the signing is that it gives them a little bit of versatility if they do want to go small. I know a lot last season when they didn't have like some big men in the lineup because their bigs last year were like, who was it? Like Alex Len and like
Alex Len.
Like someone else that's like not very good. They would play John Collins at the 5 a lot and try to go with like a faster, like high scoring, high pace lineup. So if they want to go that route, they could slot John Collins in at the 5, which they did in a few games last season. Gallinari has the size and the shot creating ability that he can play the 4. And then you can slot a guy like DeAndre Hunter in or Cam Reddish in at the 3. And it gives them a lot of versatility if they want to go with like a smaller lineup. So I think that's one thing that the Gallinari signing really helped them with.
I almost like Gallo at the 3 too. I think he has the ability to play that position, and I think that's a possibility for them to do that and have Collins at the 4, because that's obviously where his most natural position is. But I think Gallinari, yes, he's big for the 3, but I think he has the style of play and the ability to shoot well enough that he could play the 3 for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Jake. Go ahead. Yeah, it's just interesting looking at what their lineups will be. It's just who's going to start for that team. Like, I know we'll talk about Bogdanovic in a sec. Obviously, Trae Young is going to play point guard, and I think for the most part, John Collins is going to play power forward because those two guys, those are your young guys that you're building around. And now you have Wu that they drafted as well. But then they also have Capella, who they just signed last year. And then bringing in Gallinari as well. They have Herter. They have Hunter still. They got Kris Dunn. They have...
Right. And they still have Cam Reddish, too, who is, like, forgotten in, like, the Hawks kind of youth core, is because, like, Cam Reddish was drafted, I believe, in the same draft that DeAndre Hunter was. And Cam Reddish is kind of just being left behind, but they can still develop that guy in their system. I'm pretty sure he played at Duke. Did he play at Duke?
Yeah, Duke.
Yeah, he played at Duke.
Yeah. And, you know, so obviously comes out of a great basketball system, and you can only hope to develop that guy more. But then you ask yourself, well, where does DeAndre Hunter even fit in? Like, I mean, if they're signing Gallo to start him, right? Like, that's what the assumption would be, is that they're going to start Gallo and they're going to start Bogdanovic.
But I think but Bogdanovic, if the Kings don't match this offer sheet, Bogdanovic is going to be their 6th man. I think that's what his ideal role was on the Kings, and I think that's what they're going to continue to use him as. But yeah, you're right about DeAndre Hunter. Like DeAndre Hunter was a starter for like pretty much all of last season. So like, and he wasn't a bad player. So one thing I was thinking with it is like, if they do want to go that route and keep their young core in their kind of starting lineup, Gallinari wouldn't be a bad player like off the bench to add some like scoring depth to your bench with like guys like Rondo and guys like Kris Dunn, and then you have Bogdanovic as well. And that's a pretty good bench unit and gives your team a lot of good depth.
Mm-hmm. I could see the Hawks doing something
where it's honestly amazing.
Yeah, I could see the Hawks doing something where they have a very fluid positions, kind of 3 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't, you know, there are some teams that play their starters for like 40 minutes a game. I don't think the Hawks are going to be a team like that. I think, you know, Trae Young's obviously going to play 40 minutes a game, but like outside of that, I think there's going to be a very like fluid kind of like switch up thing between all the bigs they have. There's going to be, it's also a thing about defensive scheming, right? I mean, if you're going up against a team with a massive big, you're going to probably want to have more Capella minutes in there with maybe a little bit more John Collins at the power forward, because Capella can't really score like your other bigs can. But, you know, if you're going up against a bit of a smaller team, you mix it up. And so I think the 3 through 5 could be very interesting this year for the Hawks, because it's going to be a little more fluid than maybe we're used to. And because also they didn't have the assets to be this fluid before, right? Like Hunter started at the small forward, but would Hunter start at the small forward given all these things? Probably
don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah, the Hawks. I think the Hawks now have like a really great flexibility going forward into the season. Like they can kind of like just mold their lineup on any given night based on the team they're playing, which could make them a very dangerous team and a bit of a dark horse in this season. And I think that the Gallinari and the Bogdan signings both give them that sort of those options to kind of mold their lineup based on any given team they're playing.
Yeah, and we didn't even really touch on the Bogdan signing too much, but like Bogdan Bogdanovic is an excellent basketball player, and he can create his own shots as well. Like he was the sixth man for the Kings, but he can create his own shots. He can create off the dribble. He's good in the pick and roll. He's just a really versatile offensive threat. And obviously the Kings are kind of moving in a different direction with like Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox paying him all that money. Bogdanovic doesn't really maybe fit in there as well as he did last year. But I think for the Hawks, like this is a great move to just create more scoring, just generally more scoring. So Trae Young doesn't have to shoot like 30 shots a game. Like, you know, now Bogdanovic can step in and actually create some of his own opportunities where the whole offense doesn't have to run through Trae Young scoring and then Trae Young pick and rolls with like Collins to the net and Gallo on the line over there. You can kind of actually have another shot creator on the team as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think what the Hawks are gonna do is they're gonna run a guard tandem off the bench of probably Rondo and Bogdanovic, and then Kris Dunn will be more of like a third string like backup guard. And kind of they're going to try to just run their entire bench offense through the scoring of Bogdanovic and the facilitating of Rondo, and then sliding in either DeAndre Hunter or Gallinari based on whoever they decide to start at small forward. But yeah, I completely agree. I love the signing. It adds a lot of scoring depth to the Hawks, and I think it's a great addition to their team.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing, as Lucas was... Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, I think this team more than any other team in the NBA, it's so difficult to predict what their starting lineup might look like. And also they have the opportunity, as you guys were saying, like, let's say a team like the Lakers, they're quite big. They have the team to match that size and even put up more size. Like their shooter, Cam Reddish, who we don't even know if he will start, but if he does start, 6'8". And if they play Gallo at small forward, he's 6'10". John Collins is 6'9", and then Capella is like 6'11". That's a ginormous team, just all mountains on the floor. And it's just interesting because we don't even know what their starting lineup is going to look like. Just so many options, as you guys are both saying, and they provide a pretty intense and strong matchup in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think a big thing too is, as we've all kind of touched on, is now that they've improved this much going forward in the next season, I mean, that's a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. And of course, the Eastern Conference is increasingly becoming more and more competitive, as the top guys are getting better and better. And a lot of talent has come east as well. The Eastern Conference is going to be tight this year. I think that kind of 8-7-6 range. There's a wide variety of teams that could plug in there. But I expect the Hawks to be one of those teams. I think they have to be with this roster. Like with all the improvements they've made, if you look at some of the bottom East teams like the Magic and, the Pacers, and like the Pacers are in a bit of a shambles situation right now with Oladipo leaving or wanting to leave and all this kind of stuff happening with them. And then you look at the Magic, who haven't done anything exciting other than draft Cole Anthony this season. Like that's the only thing they've done. And the Pistons were like a fringe playoff team. Like they're not going to be a fringe playoff team. So the Hawks are absolutely playoff bound. I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, it should be considered a massive disappointment with the money that was spent in this offseason to create this roster. But, you know,
Definitely.
they've been picking high every year for the last few years. And I think this is the season that they take that step to actually being a real Eastern Conference competitor. And who knows what they could do in the playoffs down the road.
Yeah, I think so too. This is sort of a prove it season for the Hawks. Like, you've been building like up this roster for the last like 3 or 4 years of not being very good, and you're reaching a stage as an organization where you need to take that step, and eventually like you need to start going somewhere and becoming competitive. And I really think that with these additions this offseason that they're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I completely agree.
their team was always, I think, the biggest problem with it. As much of it was a strength, a big weakness was also was too young. Like, there wasn't like a veteran presence on that team that kind of brought any sort of like collective unity in a way. Everyone was just like 21, and like everyone was new, and it was too like immature is not the right word, but that's the idea of what I'm trying to say. Inexperienced, exactly.
Yeah.
Inexperienced.
And now they've got Gallo and Rondo that kind of fill that experienced role, which they can kind of like lead the way for those youngsters. And I definitely agree with you, Jake, when you said that this is like a playoff or bust type of year for the Hawks, because I think especially with the amount of money they spent and the pieces they've added, they have to take that next step. Otherwise, it's going to be a wasted opportunity. And in the Eastern Conference, I don't think they're a playoff team in the West, but as an Eastern Conference team, like a roster like this should be at least somewhat competitive.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like, it's also with all the money that they spent this offseason, if they don't make the playoffs, like, this is their team moving forward now for a few seasons, right? And their money's tied up. So you got to hope that they do. And because if not, there's going to be some serious questions. Also, one note, this is going to be the first season where we actually see how good their coach is. Like, because, until now it was just like, okay, just go out to recess and play with the kids. But now it's actually like, you better be running some real nice rotations and have different like lineups ready to go, have good bench options, being adapting to how like the team is playing. And this is the season where we see how good their coach is, because until now it didn't matter.
Yeah, not just like give the ball to Trae Young and like good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Atlanta Hawks, definitely an interesting team. Playoff bound, as is what our prediction is. Thank you very much for listening to Pump Take Sports Show. And please tune into any of our other episodes. We're going to talk about there will be a Raptors video. There will be a lot of other basketball things coming out. So free agency's going, and it's a good place to find your information. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.